many Americans died from COVID. Doesn't know if the vaccine helped prevent any deaths. And you are sitting as Secretary of Health and Human Services? How can you be that ignorant?
I never promised that I was going to recommend products with which there is no indication.
When you said,
and I know you've taken $855,000 from pharmaceutical companies.
On behalf of parents and schools and teachers all over the United States of America who deserve so much better than your leadership. That's what this conversation is about, Mr. Chairman.
Senator, they deserve the truth, and that's what we're going to give them for the first time.
I don't think, Mr. Secretary, this is about you and me. This is about kids being pushed in harm's way.
You've sat in that chair for how long? 20, 25 years, while the chronic disease in our children went up to 76%. And you said nothing.
Yeah. It's a Maha meltdown. RFK Jr. defending his vaccine policies against Democrats on Capitol Hill, furious over his ousting of the CDC director. Jr. says it's time for new blood at the health agency after they failed Americans during COVID.
CDC failed that responsibility miserably during COVID, when its disastrous and nonsensical policies destroyed small businesses, violated civil liberties, closed our schools, caused generational damage in doing so, massed infants with no science, and heightened economic inequality. And yet all those oppressive and unscientific interventions failed to do anything about the disease itself.
And from there, the Dems came unglued.
You're so wrong on your facts.
You're interrupting me. And, sir, you're a charlatan. That's what you are. You're the ones who conflate chronic disease with the need for vaccines.
Because you are citing data that you won't produce to the public.
You're just making things up.
Inflating chronic disease. The rate in which children have autism now is like 1 in 30. I don't think those numbers are being inflated, and people that are up on this board should be ashamed of themselves in the idea that they're not concerned with the well-being of the nation's children. I mean, that's what we're here to talk about.
You're making things up to scare people, and it's a lie.
Mr. Chairman, the Secretary of Health and Human Services doesn't know how many Americans died from COVID. Doesn't know if the vaccine helped prevent any deaths. And you are sitting as Secretary of Health and Human Services? How can you be that ignorant?
I never promised that I was going to recommend products with which there is no indication.
When you said,
and I know you've taken $855,000 from pharmaceutical companies.
And that's ultimately the reason why, you know, people like Elizabeth Warren are so vocal against what Robert Kennedy Jr. is trying to accomplish. You know, she's bought and paid for by the pharmaceutical lobby. She doesn't give a shit about what happens to the youth of the country. The autism rate is literally, hold on, I have the statistic. In 2020, it's 1 in 36. In 2 years after that, it's 1 in 31 now. Now, I don't even have a child. That concerns me. These people are all supposed to be representing the nation's best interest. They got no concern for it. Massive problem.
Senator.
On behalf of parents and schools
and to talk about the whole thing with vaccines, it's the vaccine schedule has raised significantly. That's the whole question: is autism linked to vaccines? And there should be no issue with trying to check into this and trying to figure out if this is the case. And just look at how these people act. Look at how they act, just trying to like do the nation's best interest.
teachers all over the United States of America who deserve so much better than your leadership. That's what this conversation is about, Mr. Chairman.
Senator, they deserve the truth, and that's what we're going to give them for the first time.
Exactly. They deserve the truth. The CDC, the whole COVID-19 pandemic was a scam, top to bottom. The disease was 99-point-something% safe or 97.9% safe, yet they put the whole world in panic. And they destroyed the majority of the world. Small businesses, families, children. Like he said, damage that just can't be fixed with young kids.
Wow. Dana, you were covering this all day. What did you learn? I'm sure you learned a lot about health.
As I was saying in the green room, they all lost me today. And to the point that I pulled out my IFB. I couldn't even listen to it anymore. I was extremely frustrated. I think these issues are very important. It affects everybody. And I think sort of like the debate when you have 10 people on stage and the format that we have and the time that you have, I think that's a broken system. I think these hearings are totally broken. If the goal is to get information and to have a free flow exchange of ideas and information, because that is not what's going on here.
Then what do you think the goal is?
And Republicans and Democrats both do this. The goal is to try to get a gotcha moment, so where you try to figure out some way to capture this guy, but they don't ever give him really a chance to answer.
Right, and the gotcha moment is ultimately to dissolve the entire talk on vaccines and autism. You know, nobody's saying directly that vaccines are the problem. Vaccines are the problem. They're just saying that with the rise in the schedule of vaccines, autism has risen in children. Why can't we figure it out? Why can't we look into it? And you look into a lot of these vaccines, like RFK Jr. has done, and you find that they barely get tested. Some of them don't get tested. And anybody who just takes money from pharmaceutical companies and they freak out over this stuff, like, you're a fraud. You need to be held accountable.
And he interrupted them constantly too. So I finally said, enough. One of the goals is to get yourself on cable TV, right? So if it's MSNBC or Fox or CNN, wherever you want to be. You also want to figure out some sort of soundbite so that you can get some small dollar donations, because that's where a lot of this comes from. I think that these issues, to me, like, I'm not a mom, so I'm looking at this from a spectrum of MAHA, right? I like a lot of the nutrition stuff. I've covered the food pyramid stuff since the mid-90s when I first worked on Capitol Hill. I understand all of that's broken. But I'm not I can talk about a lot of things. I am not an expert in public health at all. I have to outsource that. You know, and I don't want to ever I don't want to be a Google doctor, but the other night, Kennedy, I was actually texting her about where does she go for a doctor? Because I'm like, what about this and what about that? And if you're over 50 and then they're women, and then there's all this all the guidance is different. Everything's different. So now that's all true for children as well. So it's complex and it's complicated. And all these people did was yell over each other to the point that I couldn't understand or hear anything. They completely lost me.
Yeah. Again, and they're there to figure out a problem, whether they're for this dude or against this dude. Why can't they just figure out, if they want to get you at a gotcha moment, let's look at the data. Let's show that vaccines don't cause autism. There's your gotcha moment. They don't. They throw a fit. And then RFK Jr. comes with the receipts. Like for Elizabeth Warren, she's got nearly $1 million paid for by pharmaceutical companies. It makes sense that she's going to defend these people. Getting paid.
Yeah. I think, I feel your pain.
Thank you.
Yes. I can give you I can give you a recommendation for a few doctors.
Great.
They practice out of a van, though, Jesse. You look at these politicians that are grilling RFK Jr., they don't look like they're in excellent health.
No, Wyden looks terrible.
Yeah.
And he's probably the best looking one out there. But these people oversaw an obesity epidemic, a birth rate plummeting, testosterone plummeting, autism skyrocketing, and they did nothing about it. And then they get on TV and they act like this guy is the bad guy. This guy was hired to clean house. If he came in and didn't fire anybody from these agencies, he should be fired. That's what this whole agenda is about. You take these people who industry puts there, they rubber stamp everything from food additives to vaccines, so it's profitable for the industry, and then they destroy any evidence that a study has. He came out and said they were destroying evidence of a study that showed black kids were getting side effects from a shot they didn't need, and the Democrat senators didn't even care. They accused him of killing people. And it's sick because they're saying he's anti-science. All he's saying is we're going to put in some unbiased scientists. They're going to look at the facts. And if it's still okay to have these shots at a young age, and if it's still okay for some of these drugs to be prescribed, that's fine. We just want to look at the underlying data. And that's not controversial. In fact, that's the scientific method. And the people that are saying this guy's anti-science were double masking. They were face shielding. They were shutting down beaches and parks and schools. And they actually think Joe Biden's healthy. And they think you can power the world economy with windmills, Greg, with windmills. Talk about anti-science. So I'm glad he went up there and battled these people. This is a big battle. He is the most popular member of the cabinet, and Maha is the most bipartisan, popular piece of this agenda. I think we can all agree, if we've been to the beach recently, that we don't look so good. And it's not a coincidence that we stopped looking good after we added all this stuff to the food, upped all the shots, stuck our faces in the screens all day. All of a sudden, we're popping pills and we all look horrible, and we're spending $1 trillion a year to make ourselves healthier, and we're getting sicker. We're the fattest, sickest, and most mentally.
Right. So what does that tell you? The revolving door of fraud. And RFK Jr. highlights the revolving door between the regulatory agencies and the pharmaceutical firms as a structural flaw that, favors industry interest over the public. And, he points it out multiple times, and that's why these people flip out. And like Jesse said, they rubber stamp stuff to get it passed, to keep profits up at the expense of us, at the expense of the public health. And it's all coming to a head now. And it's funny watching the politicians freak out. It's hysterical.
Mentally ill we've ever been, and this guy's the one guy that was sent in like a heat-seeking missile to blow the place up. Good. I say blow it up. And if you're against it, then you want America to stay sick.
Wow. Jesse. Kennedy, they were really circling the wagons around the CDC, and he took it apart in that one clip there. But it's like, why can't CDC answer for some of the decisions they made?
Or for some of the businesses that were shuttered. Or to his point, before he testified today, he published an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal showing some of the fallout from COVID, the lockdown, shuttered schools, closed businesses, arbitrary 6-foot distancing rules, and all these things. So the difference between RFK Jr. and, a lot of other cabinet secretaries.
Right, all those things that she just mentioned, and then on top of public officials not abiding by their own rules or the rules that she just stated, i.e. Gavin Newsom, caught on video doing it multiple times.
Is he has been passionate about this work for decades. And someone like Interior Secretary Doug Burgum, I think he's fantastic. I think he's had a lot of success as a governor in his state, and he knows a lot about energy, but he's not been fueled by this the way RFK Jr. has. And that's what's frustrating to a lot of the senators, is he has answers for these things. And he has a team of advisors that he has been working with. And I disagree with him on a lot of stuff, but at least he makes me think about vaccines.
Yeah.
At least I have conversations with people who are having babies now, and even the schedule that they're giving kids now is vastly different than 16 years ago, the last time that I had to have these sensitive conversations with the pediatrician. I think that's the best thing we can do as a society, and have these honest discussions about how we look and what we're putting in our.
I rarely agree with this lady, but she's hitting every point on the head. There's no reason why we shouldn't be discussing this as a society, to make sure that everything is right, that we're putting the correct stuff in children in terms of vaccines, and we're getting rid of stuff that's no good. Common sense.
Bodies and the solutions we're giving our children.
We need a common sense party in politics. There needs to be literally a common sense party, a CSP.
When we're failing them, when all of these institutions are failing him. So if Trump was elected to be a disruptor and to dismantle things as a limited government libertarian, I cheer that, even if I might have some fundamental issues with what he's saying. I believe in the work that he's doing.
You're right. I mean, just aside before we go to Harold, I didn't look at vaccines obviously until I had to, I knew about it. But like the Hep B vaccine, your baby has to get the Hep B vaccine. And I go, well, what are the risk factors? Well, if your mother has Hep B, and how did you get it? Well, through syringes or having sex with that. It's like, we're not in that group.
No.
We're not in that. Well, you know what? You should still get the vaccine as a community preventive thing. I go, what does that mean exactly? My kid doesn't need this. And yet they tell you that it's required or suggested. And if you say no, they make you feel guilty. I think that's it for tonight. So, Harold.
So I have a slightly different opinion about this than the people around the table on a couple of different fronts. I have kids like you do, and in New York City, your kids can't go to school unless they have a certain number of vaccines. And my wife and I put our kids on a schedule. They got their vaccines. We asked questions, but we adhered to and believed in the guidelines. As I listened to Mr. Kennedy today, it was disappointing because I think he's a serious guy, but he was not serious today. The reason I was most excited about him becoming HHS secretary was about food and looking at the food supply and trying to understand the connection between that and allowing people to live healthier lives. I didn't think he got to any of that. Much of the criticism, Greg, around vaccines that he encountered today, it was as much from Republicans as it was Democrats. In fact, the leader of the committee, Bill Cassidy, he was the one that said, you are denying people vaccines. That wasn't a Democrat. The first person to say that was Senator Cassidy. He was followed up by the senator from Wyoming and even Senator Tillis asking these questions.
But again, he's not denying anybody vaccines. If you want to get a vaccine, go ahead. He wants to show the data if it's good or not, or if it's affecting children with autism, or that you don't need it. This guy is dumb. This is a dumb human.
Struck also, he was asked a question by Senator.
I guarantee you he wore a mask and probably still wears one in his car.
A lot about mental health when guns are involved on campuses or in workplaces, and I think mental health is an issue. The administration cut Medicaid. The biggest provider, the single biggest payer for Medicaid services for young people in this country is Medicaid. Mr. Kennedy couldn't ask it. We answered that. We put up Senator Warner, who I thought asked questions about COVID and how many people died, how many people are going to see their increases in drug costs go up, seniors that is, next year. And Mr. Kennedy couldn't answer it. You can't be the HHS secretary. We poke fun at Jasmine Crockett, rightly so, when she can't answer basic questions, and even other Democrats. We have to be consistent. You can't be the HHS secretary and not know the budget for Medicaid, Medicare, or CDC. Finally, you can't blame. I don't mean to cut you up, but how dare you? I think it is nuts when people try to blame. People try to blame what happened in Ukraine on Biden. It'd be like me trying to say that when COVID happened in America because President Trump was president, he's to blame for it. Of course he isn't. For the thing where he lost me today was when he blamed the CDC for 1 million or more deaths. I think you're right, Kennedy, and around the table, there are things they could have done better. But to blame the CDC, it was COVID, and we never got to the bottom of what China did in all of this. Yeah. I'm still a believer that because they won't let us in, that you have to assume there's some culpability on their part. None of those questions were answered by him. I thought he might have said.
Sure, yeah, China has to be held accountable for COVID-19, but at the same time, yeah, the CDC, they messed up, dude. They messed up top to bottom. They gave all these recommendations on what you need to do for COVID, and none of them proved true, or none of them helped. None of them. The vaccine doesn't help. Masks didn't help. Social distancing didn't help. Shutting schools down didn't help. And yeah, no, CDC is not to blame at all. This dude is a fraud. He's a typical Democrat that just avoids reality.
Announce a big fentanyl campaign. We're going to try to get people to get off of drugs. But again, so I was disappointed today as I watched him.
Okay,
I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's okay. It's just that you did a list persuasion. You have a lot of things in there.
And y'all did too.
I know, but I'm just saying that he was being honest when he said he didn't know, because that's the right answer. You don't know about the deaths. The same, we were lied to about flu vaccines. Okay. How many people were killed by the flu every year?
No, you can blame them because they were qualifying.
COVID killed these people, not the CDC.
You came in with a gunshot wound, Harold, and if you had tested for COVID, you were marked down as a COVID death, so the hospitals could get more money. That's how it.
Right, and that's inflating stats. That's illegal.
Worked. It's already been exposed. Why am I the one exposing this?
Jesse,
you're always exposing.
As much as we want to be partisan sometimes, COVID killed these people, not the CDC.
I know, but
and
we don't have a
we
full
have to
accounting
clarify
for it because they don't have accurate statistics.
Killed them? You think the CDC killed it?
That's not what he said. He said we don't have an accurate count because of the way the hospitals jiggered with the numbers.
Well, we couldn't even have an honest discussion at the time because they were all the scientists who were mildly skeptical and reading the same data, who were pushing back against Anthony Fauci, were told they would have their funding taken away if they dared not toe the line. So we don't know some of those answers, unfortunately.
Yeah, in your face, Harold.
He said the CDC. He said the CDC was responsible. I got it, but he said the CDC. He did say that, Jesse.
That's not a direct quote, Harold, but it's okay. Click here to subscribe to the.
They bug out. Like, the CDC is responsible. they're not responsible directly for killing people. They're responsible for a lot of the mess up. And the fact that he can't see that, like Jesse said, you come in with a gunshot wound, you got COVID, you died of COVID. Clearly, you died from the gunshot wound, but you got more money. It inflated the statistics. It made people freak out. It was all a scam. Thankfully, I did not fall for the $1 trillion propaganda scheme, and I am still here. But this was a very funny episode. I love watching Democrats and especially senators freak out at, the most basic common sense stuff. We're trying to make sure kids are okay and kids are safe with food and public health and everything. This is too funny. But it exposes our government and how everything is and how they don't really have our best interest. So we'll be watching some more The Five, and I'll check you guys in the next one. If you made it this far, hit me with a like and subscribe. And yeah, check you in the next one. Peace.